Okay, that's past exactly. So I'm going to start this session. So welcome everyone, and thank you all so much for taking the time to come and join us in this, the latest in the Northwest Masterclass series. I'm really pleased that you've all been able to join us, and thanks to Alana for piloting us into a safe start on this, aboard this Zoom webinar that's spanning across the world all the way to Los Angeles. So this is, before I start, we should just do some hygiene. What we're going to do is, throughout the session today, there will be a chat box. If you have got any questions, please pop your questions or comments or anything that you'd like to say in the chat, and we'll be monitoring that throughout. And at the end, that will really help us perhaps with some questions and answers as well. I'm going to hand over to, is it Alana, to remind us of some Zoom etiquette, and then I'll introduce myself and the speaker.
Yeah, not a problem. Can we have the next slide, please? Fab. So probably fully aware of all of this already, but just as a reminder, quite a lot of us in the room today, so if we can stay muted for the time being, and then we can invite people to unmute your microphone as and when we have some of the conversations. We are recording the session today, as Juliet mentioned, so feel free to keep your camera on, feel free to turn it off, whichever you feel most comfortable with. I know it's always great to see who we've got in the room, so fully encourage you to keep your cameras on if you want. If you click on the participants tab at the bottom, you'll be able to see who's in the room, and that's where you'll be able to pop your hand up and get some of our attention if you need it. And like Juliet said, there'll be several occasions where we'll be going into the chat box, seeing what comments are in there and any questions. So as Becky's kind of presenting and we're going through the session, feel free to drop anything in there and we'll come to it as and when. I'll be helping with tech support today, as well as a few other colleagues. So if you are having any issues, please do feel free to direct message myself or pop your hand up and we'll do our best to help you. If you are having tech issues, I would suggest just sign out of all your other apps, emails, Teams, anything else that you've got open, and that should hopefully help with your bandwidth. Like I said before, we've got conversations going on Twitter, so if you want to get involved, please do. And anything that we can't get round to today, we will aim to answer any questions or anything afterwards. But other than that, have a fantastic session, and I'll hand back over to you, Julia.
Thank you, and also to say there will be no fire alarms as far as I'm aware on the Zoom call today, so please look after yourselves. Make sure that you take breaks when you need to, keep yourself fed and watered as we go through. So I'm just going to introduce myself. My name is Juliet Kumar. I'm chairing this session today, and I'm an Associate Director with the Innovation Agency, and we are one of the 6 agencies who are part of this Northwest Collaborative. It also includes MIAA, the Merseyside Internal Audit Agency, Northwest Employers, AQUA, and oh gosh, I don't want to miss anyone out. And ADAS, Northwest ADAS, which are Adult Directors of Social Services. So together we come together to design and plan some masterclasses which we bring to leaders across across the Northwest, so that we can all benefit from some of this new thinking, some of this useful ways of doing things, leadership approaches, etc., etc. We collaborate to do that, and I'm really pleased to be part of that collaboration as well. I think we do some great work. So what I will do today is the program's in front of you right now. So I'm very quickly will introduce our speaker. The session's about leading for social change. Easy for me to say, sorry. So transforming yourself and others, and then I'm going to very quickly hand over to Becky Margiotta, who is going to lead the session. So I'm going to just tell you a little bit about Becky and why we've invited her here today, really, and it is with absolute deep gratitude that I am able to introduce Becky. So I first became aware of Becky's work while I was at a King's Fund event hosted by NHS England and the South West HSN, and one of our close colleagues, Joe McCannon from the Billions Institute, was sharing the work that they do on leading large-scale social change. And ever since then, really, I've been a big fan of her and of the ethos of that organisation. So just a little bit about Becky herself. So she was in the 11th class of women to graduate from the United States Military Academy at West Point and served for 9 years as an Army officer. She was the first woman to command a company in the Army's only Special Ops Signal Battalion, and she was the fourth woman to gain admission into a top secret special mission unit. Despite success in these elite units, Becky experienced a nagging ambivalence over lying about her sexual orientation, so she resigned her commission on National Coming Out Day in 2000, and it has relished the freedom of being out of the closet ever since. So since then, Becky has committed herself to weaving together the web of life. The last 18 years of her career, she has been engaged in either leading social change herself or sharing her wisdom with others. And for over a decade, she has worked on street homelessness, culminating in leading the 100,000 Homes campaign, which is a large-scale change effort that mobilised 186 cities to house 100,000 of their most vulnerable and long-term homeless people, taking them off the streets in just under 4 years. She co-founded Nights Out, a non-profit that mobilises dozens of fellow West Point grads to come out of the closet, and in doing so, paved the way for the demise of the discriminatory "don't ask, don't tell" policy. And finally, as a co-founder and co-owner of the Billions Institute, Becky has trained thousands of social sector leaders from across the world in how to design and lead social change. In Spring 22, her first book, Impact with Integrity, Rebuilding the World Without Breaking Yourself, will be published, and I'm looking forward to that. And you can hear her interviewing fascinating graduates from her large-scale change workshops on the Unleashing Social Change podcast. So lots of ways to get involved and find out more about the work there. She has many awards, and I could go on and on, but really, now I'm pleased to say she reports that she's happily living happily ever after in Claremont, California, with her wife and their 2 children. So enough from me, and please join me in a very warm welcome on a cold autumn day to a warm day in California to Becky Margiotta.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you for your just very generous introduction, and good afternoon, good evening to everybody. So lovely to see all of you. So lovely to see your faces or your names or the little clappy hands. Thank you, Nesta. We're gonna blend together the 2 hours so that the Q&A is woven throughout. I have a lot of interaction planned for you, both not just in the chat. I can't put you in breakout rooms, but in kind of jam boards where we can all see what one another are thinking anonymously. And my intention in this is for you to have some me time, for you to have some time to reflect on how you're doing as a social change leader, to reflect on what, if anything, feels difficult or challenging or hard, how you're showing up vis-a-vis your challenges, and give you some tried and true techniques and hacks and backdoor secret chutes and ladders to help you navigate the extraordinarily stressful period of time we're in. And even without all that's going on with the pandemic, et cetera, the rates of burnout in the types of work that you all do are exceedingly high. And so that's my intention, is this for you to have some me time, to be radically selfish for just 2 hours. But I really want you to have this be for you. And my hope is that you have one or two or maybe 3 takeaways of things that you can put to work right away to make your lives work for you more, right? That's what I'm after here. So please just settle in and get yourself comfortable. And as Juliet said, if you need to use the restroom or anything, please come and go and if you need to get up and move or stretch or lay out a blanket and lay on the ground, that's okay too. Whatever is going to work for you. This is for you. I am here for you. So with that, I also think I'm going to share a couple slides. I think we are at a really unique moment in history for so many ways. And I think that there's this opening or this opportunity to do what I'm thinking in my brain is Control Alt Delete business as usual, that we have an opportunity to reboot here. And the question for you is going to be, what do you want to reboot? What are we going to Control Alt Delete for you? So I'm going to put some pauses in and give you some time to reflect, but just to get you teed up and thinking about that some, in 2020, this group called the Well-Being Inspires Well-Doing, they put out a report called How Changemakers' Inner Well-Being Influences Their Work. And they looked at a whole bunch of fields and sectors of change makers and people who are trying to do good things in the world. And they looked into their own well-being. And I'm going to share a few statistics from that report over the next few slides. And I just want to invite you to tune into, oh, that resonates with me, or like, oh, thank goodness that's not happened to me right now. But this is what they're seeing in the sectors. And this is all of the sectors exactly like you that are in some way wake up every single day to try to make the world a better place, right? To be of service. So here's one statistic is that, and specifically in the nonprofit sector, but I think it could be just as well for in the NHS. So, but although I don't know, is 42% of people they surveyed, and they surveyed thousands of people, believe their job was detrimental to their mental health. So that's happening, right? That is huge. They also looked at specifically, they spoke with people who did humanitarian work, who were really at the front lines of refugee crises and things like that. And what they found was that, this was back in 2015, of the people working in the humanitarian sector, almost 20% met the criteria for a diagnosis of PTSD. And so also people, another 20% met the criteria for sub-threshold PTSD, and then almost 15% met the criteria for depression. And so these are, to my understanding, a higher rate than occurs in the general population. I also have even some information from law enforcement. Law enforcement's rate is about 10 times the rate of the general population in the United States right now, right? So people who are, theirs is even more complicated because they're both in some cases really having to witness or be at a front seat to some really horrifying things, and also are rightfully, I think, experiencing a reckoning for their profession, right? And so these things can be incredibly hard. And I know my understanding is in the NHS you are beloved, and so you got that going for you. But these are some of the things going on now. This is straight out of the British Association for Social Workers and Community Care, and they found that of the people who are doing this work, this frontline work in communities, that 50% of the respondents said, this is how I cope. I do emotional eating. They were like, okay, well, what's going on? Well, how do you cope? Okay, emotional eating. And just, this is a chance, like, okay, do I do that? Is this going on for me? Another one is that 35% said they use alcohol to cope with the stress they have at work. So if this is you, you are certainly not alone. 63% had difficulty sleeping. And this is what stress does to us, right? It raises our cortisol levels, our body, we can't relax. 53% said they were emotionally exhausted. And another 35% said they're just plain old unable to cope with work. So there's a woman named Beth Cantor of the United States, who a lot of people just sort of see as a just really brilliant, wise woman in understanding what goes on in nonprofit work. And she was quoted in this report, and I broke it up over a couple of slides just so we can really just slow down and let us take it in. And I slashed out nonprofit because I think it's all of us. I think it's all of us doing the work to make the world a better place. You don't have, this is just a specific context, but those of us who do the work often distort our view of what good work means because we think the nature of our work is about sacrifice. This is still from Beth here. The fact that we are often financially strained and under constant constraint to do more with less amplifies this phenomenon. And I'm imagining everyone on this call has been under the constraint of needing to do more with less And that is not going away anytime soon, as we'll talk about a little bit later. And then as a result, through that, we push through our to-do lists at the expense of taking care of ourselves. And our organizational leaders, our board leaders, whoever it may be that we're accountable to, the governing boards, they reinforce this idea that everything about our work is at a level 10. It's always urgent. It's always important, whatever it is. So together, like this isn't happening to us. It's more all of us are creating a culture of overwork and overwhelm. So that's Beth Cantor and Eliza Sherman. So here's what I want to say is if you are experiencing burnout, if you are feeling overwhelmed, if you are using any of those coping mechanisms that we shared, I just want to acknowledge that the burnout is real, that you're not making it up, that it's not just you, right? This is happening big time, and it can be any range of issues. You may have financial constraints, you may have personnel challenges, you may have not enough people doing the work, you may have the wrong people doing the wrong things, right? It can be, you may have something going on in your personal life, right? There may be just structural changes that you need to make that you don't even have the time to make. I don't know what it is for you, but I want to give you a moment to think, right? Right now, just reflect so that everything I share with you for the rest of our time together, you have something to kind of hang it on, right? That there's something you're like, oh yeah, this is the thing. So what is the hardest thing you're dealing with as a leader right now? And I just want to give you a minute to journal, a minute to write it down, a minute to reflect. I'll set a little timer. We're not in any rush right now. We've got plenty of time. Let's make it real. What's the hardest thing you are dealing with right now? All right, let's take another 10 seconds. Just get one real thing that's a rock in your shoe or a pebble in your shoe that we can play with over our time together. All right, and I want to invite you to, I'm not asking you to be specific or, air your dirty laundry excessively, but if you would be willing to share in the chat, like, what's the hardest thing right now? Is it finances? Is it too much that needs to be done? Is it, what is it? What's going on for you? Too many things. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah, Juliet, keeping up with the pace of work. Yeah. Clinical engagement. Thank you, Mark. Winter. Yeah, Jude. And winter is coming, has a whole new connotation, right? With the pandemic going on, whilst looking after my family. Exactly. Juliet, so many people are in that situation where I think there's this Control-Alt-Delete on what's the work-life balance anymore? What's that going to be, right? Having enough staff to do the job while feeling burnt out myself, trying to keep it all going. Yeah. Perceived threat. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, lack of staff, right? Getting people to stop, rest, think, me time, right? Like pulling up, taking ourselves up to 10,000 feet so we can really get ahead of things again, right? Rachel, kindness, compassion, and respect seen during the height of the pandemic to colleagues seems to have declined. Yeah, right. It's interesting, Rachel, you remind me, there's this woman, Rebecca Solnit, wrote this book called A Paradise Built in Hell. And she studied really significant natural disasters. She's written some really poignant essays during the pandemic too, like a huge fire in San Francisco in 1906 and Hurricane Katrina and the Halifax fire in Canada. And when they go back and they talk to people who've survived these really horrific earthquakes or fires or hurricanes, they all look back on it as the best, one of the highlights, one of the peak experiences of their life. The disaster, of course, was horrible, but the thing that made it a peak experience was that all of the normal social norms around really individualism got broken down, and everyone just showed up for each other. And it sounds like that's some of what you got to experience during the pandemic. And then maybe it's like, okay, well, now we can go back to everyone for themselves, right? And so there was something that was special that maybe we want to pull through as the through line. So I'll ask Pam or Selena, anything else sticking out to you that you just really want to highlight for here? And I really want to appreciate the people who are chatting things in. And I hope you're seeing you're not alone.
Hello. Yeah, just looking at what's here. I think yeah, juggling priorities is coming up there. Too many things to do. The only person working on it.
Yeah, and I love this. I'm the only person working on it who actually wants it to happen. Totally. So, Philippe, you are in the right place. You are absolutely in the right place. So, we're going to give you some tools for how to be with this hardest thing. And it's, you know, I'm not going to promise you any rainbows or unicorns, but I do want to help loosen the grip a little bit so that you can then have some perspective and make some conscious changes that are going to move things in a direction that's going to give you a little breathing room. So that's what I'm hoping we can do together. So I appreciate you for anchoring this in something that's real and current for you right now. So I have another question, really, and this is a little bit of a survey. Is we're going to put a link in the chat to something. It's called a klaxoon. It's kind of like we'll come to this 4 times. All it needs is a nickname for you, and all you have to do is follow the link. So Selena, can you please put that in the chat? Okay. Oh, Holly's got it. Great. Okay. So if you click on that link, it's going to take you to this survey. And what I'm curious about is of those stressors I mentioned, which, if any, are present for you? Which stressors? I just want to take a minute right now to just face into what's happening for me. So if you could go ahead and take care of that survey. It's totally anonymous, by the way. And we'll wait until folks have done it to really see the results. We don't want to bias people. So let's go ahead and show what we've got. And if you haven't joined the survey, there's a link that Holly just put in the chat. All you have to do is click on that link. Carmel, I'm sorry, it's taking you some time to log in. And we'll get you. I see some more people are just joining, so that's great. So yours, even as I'm sharing it, it will update with your results. So let's look and see which stressors are how they're showing up for folks, right? So this is more around which coping mechanisms have you tried or which symptoms have you experienced? So let's see. So this is what we're seeing right now. So 88% of people on this call are experiencing some difficulty sleeping, right? I get it. Trust me, I get that. 64% feeling emotionally exhausted, and then 58% feeling or emotional eating, 45% alcohol, 27% just on this call are feeling unable to cope with work. And this is real, y'all. this is real. And I know that a lot of the people on this call right now are in positions of leadership. And so imagine what other people are experiencing too, right? People who maybe even have less of a say in their day to day, right? So this stuff is real. I really want to appreciate you for sharing this. Yeah, let's do something about this, right? Let's make some small shifts so that we can sleep really good at night, so that we can feel good enough that we don't have to rely on any coping mechanisms, right? So that we're not emotionally exhausted, so we're actually rejuvenated and inspired by work. So let's go back and see, like, okay, well, what else? I want to peel the onion one layer more here with you, is that not only is the burnout real, but I believe personally that this was going on long before the pandemic, right? That the pandemic just helped us see what was actually going on all along, right? Is that I believe that it's systemic. I believe it's institutional, historical, systemic. It's built into the mix. All those surveys were done before the pandemic, right? It was just released in 2020. So I want to share with you something that was written in the United States context, but having worked in the UK for several years now, I'm absolutely confident is relevant in England as well. There is a woman named Tema Okun in the United States who spent decades consulting with organizations around equity, specifically around racial equity. And 20 years ago, after working with organizations for 20 years, she said, you know what? Because of our unique history in the United States of effectively being founded on the genocide of the native people who lived here, and on the genocide and enslavement of people stolen from Africa, this white domination, this, all of this, sometimes when we hear white supremacy or racism, you may get an image of the United States and the KKK and the white pointy hats and burning crosses. And a lot of people in the United States get that image too. But really, racism is systemic in the United States too. And it shows up in all of our inequalities. And it shows up in our organizational cultures because it's just so pervasive. And Tema wrote this beautiful article 20 years ago where she said, hey, I've been doing this for 20 years. I'm going to put my finger on the dynamics that are actually harmful, that you can trace their roots to racism. You can trace their roots to colonialism. You can trace their roots to genocide. And they show up in organizational cultures, and we all think this is normal, but it's actually exceedingly dysfunctional and harmful. And when I read her article, which I'm going to share with you, I was like, because what I do is I teach people how to design and lead large scale change. I was like, Tema, that is exactly the same stuff that gets in the way of people doing large scale change. There's no coincidences here. This is real. This is systemic. So let me just share with you, this is earlier this year, Tema put out an update of her article. She's like, it's been 20 years since I published this. It's still going on, but I want you to, she updated it, her updated article. It's on the website. If you go to whitesupremacyculture.info, it is worth a read. It is worth a read. So let me explain to you what we do with this to make this real for people in the United States and in the United Kingdom. We took the 30 or so norms that Tema named that are prevalent in many organizations, and we turned them into almost like, it sounds weird, but a game where each norm is written on a playing card, and teams that come through our 4-day training on how to design and lead large scale change, they lay all 30, 40 cards out on a table. Then they stand around the table together and they say, which one of these we have going on in our organization? And my challenge to them is each person can pick only 3. And then let's say if there's 4 people on a team, they take their 4 times 3, they're 12. They get rid of all the other ones because those are not as prevalent right now. And then they take their 12 and then they again collectively narrow it down to 3. And they're like, these are the 3 most prevalent elements of what Tema calls white supremacy culture, but really it is a culture that really is systemically leads to burnout, right? That we see in organization. Now, I've trained thousands of people, as Juliet said, and we starting to see some trends. We're starting to see that organizations really gravitate towards specific aspects of how they incorporate and enact essentially these dynamics that Tema was warning them about. So I want to share with you the top 4 most prevalent white supremacy culture dynamics that we have seen in all our trainings of literally hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people and dozens and dozens and dozens of organizations. So here's the number, we're going to do number 4, number 3, number 2, and number 1, most prevalent. And you can see if you see what I see in terms of their connection to this burnout and how it's baked in, it's systemic. So the 4th one, number 4 is, and this is 4th most common that we see of 40 in all the organizations that we've trained, is overworking as the unstated normal. That it's just, you're supposed to overwork, that you get cookies for overworking. You get attaboys, you get your shoulder patted if you overwork, right? That it's normal to encourage people to work through the weekends and into the night. And what she says, it's either directly or passively, because what you might do is just set it up so there's no way you can get it done in a normal work week. And specifically how the racism can show up in the United States context is ignoring how Black and brown people have historically and systemically been requested to take on the physically taxing work by white bosses, right? And so there's multiple elements of this that she braids together, right? So that is, Tema saw this too. She saw this 20 years ago in these organizations of like, this is how it keeps going, was we're like, go, 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 take. It's too much, it's too much, it's too much, right? Let me go on to number 3. And I want you to be thinking about, as I say these, like, oh, does our organization do this? You know? So, or do we really encourage downtime? Do we really encourage vacation time? Are people able to find balance? Are people able to take care of their family when they need to, right? Or those types of things. Number 3 is transactional goals. And this is as opposed to transformational goals. So transactional goals often goes along with transactional relationships where there's just some quota or target that somebody else set that doesn't feel meaningful or purposeful to the person there. And people are just trying to get the number. It's not because of the transformation, it's because they just want to get the number, right? And it has a transactional feel. So we do see that a lot in our work in the UK. So please, this is not to feel bad if you're experiencing any of these. It's so that you can be like, oh my God, look at what, like Beth Cantor said, we are creating this, right? We are allowing this to continue. How can we switch from transactional to transformational? So number 2, most common, is fear of open conflict. And this one is especially in organizations where, like multiracial organizations, intersectionality, is especially that white people can feel like they have a right to feel comfortable, right? And that politeness is valued over honesty, and then real conversations don't get had. There's a lot in the US context, at least, around white fragility, where, you know, if somebody brings up like, hey, this is this thing that just happened, this was racist or sexist or whatever it may be, the defensiveness of white people like me can then result in the issue not being resolved and the person who brought it up being scapegoated, right? But what this also can result in is that feedback is withheld, right? Like that people, and then therefore people don't grow, people have a distorted sense of how they're doing, people aren't performing, and small problems become big problems, right? So this can absolutely happen. It's number 2 most common in the United States and in the UK. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit later, but I think that part of what keeps this going is the drama triangle, right? Of people don't always have the skills or tools for giving feedback in a way that does not have blame or criticism baked into it, right? Where it's just truly feedback. So let's move on to number one here is, comprehensiveness. So comprehensiveness, she defines as continual research and writing that leads nowhere. Having to write lots of reports, having to report to lots of committees, and the committees are working in isolation and nothing ever seems to kind of get done in those committees, right? And no one even can remember why we're meeting in the first place, right? Right? So this one is number one. It's the number one most common dynamic. And so I want to give you a moment just to reflect on, and there may be other systemic things that are really up for you. I just wanted you to see four. And I want to, Holly, I'll tee this up for the next klaxoon is the next thing we want to do, is give you an opportunity to reflect on of these four that I just shared. So overworking is the unstated norm, transactional goals, fear of open conflict, comprehensiveness. Which, if any, of these systemic sources of burnout are prevalent in your working environment, right? That literally affect your day-to-day life. So if, Holly, would you be willing to put the klaxoon in the chat for that?
I think Selena's already done it. Thanks, Selena.
Oh, Selena's done it. Okay, great. Okay, good. Selena's back. Okay. So let's go to that link again. And I'm going to exit the stressors, although that was great. And we're going to look at which of these are most prevalent. So I'll give you a moment again to hop in, and then I want to give you a chance to reflect on that. Like how does that dynamic really show up? What is the moment where that dynamic that Tema so presciently named, how does that show up? Julia, it's nice to know another fan of the drama triangle. We're that is a founding piece of what we try to bring into helping people lead social change. Okay, well, let's look at these survey results, and this will update as more people answer. But the question was, which systemic issue is most prevalent in your environment? And here's what we're seeing. So overworking is a stated norm. Interesting. So that used to be number one, or number four, but in this crowd, it's the number one most common. Overworking is the stated norm. And I want to invite you to enter into the chat. How does that manifest for you? Like, what is it? Is it having to work on weekends, or doing things that aren't what you aren't what you had to agree to do? Like, how does that look really specifically? What are the concrete things? And maybe Pam and Selena can offer what people chat in as, let's make this real, right? This isn't just theoretical. The number two is fear of open conflict. So how does that manifest? How's that manifesting? And how's that tied into your number one stressor? Number three is comprehensiveness, and then the transactional goals. Some of you, that's the thing. All right. What do you, let's put into the chat. What is the concrete way this is showing up? I really want this to get like really real, like down to one sentence, like blank. Like, I just spent 3 hours writing a report that had no value for me. You know what I mean? Or I like, for the 5th time I worked on a Saturday. What is that looking like for you? And Pam and Selena, I'll ask you if you can MC that.
Yeah. Mo is saying unrealistic deadlines that can only be achieved by working late or on the weekend. Exactly what you just said. Having to give up exercise to get all the work done, losing my own time with family, feeling guilty when you're not working or ill or not working late.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these are all real. Yeah.
Oh, they're coming in now. Missing great opportunities because we just can't do everything that comes up. Not having honest conversations for fear of upsetting somebody or being at the other end of anger.
Yeah, totally. Yep. Yeah.
Okay, so the workload is such and the days are filled with meetings as a result of comprehensiveness, meaning the only way to get things done is overwork.
Totally, Philippa. Totally.
Yeah.
Sometimes I book my calendar so full that the only time I can actually do my work, right? Like, which also doing the things you're doing is also work, is like after our kids go to bed, right? Like that's, sorry. Yeah. Don't let me interrupt you, Pam. What else are people saying?
Well, I think it's something that's come up for everybody, really. Working virtually means diaries are back to back, so it feels like a treadmill, which sort of adds to the sort of always available feeling.
Yeah.
Excessive
Absolutely.
micromanagement has come up here.
Yeah. Another word for comprehensiveness. I see that, bureaucracy and excessive micromanagement. Yeah.
Frequent meetings, inviting clinicians, focusing on targets rather than focusing on systems and processes.
Yeah.
Working hours just to get things done, keep things moving.
Absolutely. This is it, you all. This is it. So these are structural things, right? These are things. So here's the burnout is real. We've established that, right? You're feeling it right now. It's systemic. Like this was going on before the pandemic, and it's in exactly like you said, like the meetings that are about transactional goals, the fear to say something because someone's going to get angry, right? The back to back schedules that don't give you the time to do the other parts that are really important, like thinking about the bigger picture things, right? For relationship, right? For joy, for connection, for celebration, all those things get squeezed out when we're like overemphasizing meeting transactional targets or comprehensiveness or things like that. So it's very real, but it's also driving people away. Like, I think there's something really going on right now, right? So another thing that came out of this study was that they talked to people who left the sector too, and 90% said the reason I left was burnout. It wasn't because it wasn't enough pay, it wasn't because of anything else. It was because I was feeling burned out. And I've been noticing, I'll just confess that I'm a 52-year-old woman, and my primary source of entertainment is TikTok. And there's all these people on TikTok, like, who are just like, I quit my job and now I'm living in a van and now I'm really having a great old time. And here's me sipping my little mug of tea, happy by in the mountains, and like something is happening. And then I started Googling about it so I could see, and like, here's a headline from the New York Times. And this is recent. This was last week. Britain was prepared for a job crisis, just not the one it got, right? So it's not, the unemployment's not the problem anymore, that there are positions that aren't filled, right? And if you don't have enough people, and I saw some people saying like that, literally, we don't have enough people, all of these things around the scarcity and not enough people to do the things that need to be done, it's just going to spiral on itself, right? If we can't make it to where we've got what we need and the teams we need, right? And so, like, as I just mentioned, van life, this was a New York Times headline, van life is booming. Like, everyone's just like, you know what, I'm out. I'm going to go live in a van and be happy. This is like a massive thing. Here's another headline, just so you can kind of put this in context. Wonking out, they're calling it the Great Resignation. Is this a great rethink? Like, I personally believe that everyone on this call, myself including, is living through a once in a lifetime opportunity to control, alt, delete, reset. What was working? Let's keep doing that. What wasn't working? Let's stop doing that. But this call and other opportunities are things to say, well, what was really actually working before? And how can we do more of that? And what's absolutely not working? And how can we stop that right away? Or we're going to keep hemorrhaging people and aliveness, and our own aliveness and connection and joy. And we're just going to get the life sucked out of us, right? So how can we do this control, alt, delete? And here's really the punchline, the kicker. As my friend Gay Hendricks says, big point. Say that before. He says, big point coming soon. The big point is you won't make progress out there. We are not going to change these dynamics until we take full ownership of everything that's going on in here, that a lot of this is inside work first, which will enable us to do the outside work, but that it starts on the inside, right? So we have been unconsciously perhaps colluding and co-constructing these structures that no longer fit our lives or our aliveness. So the only person who's going to make them different is us. You know, if it's not you, who? But first, we almost have to kind of detoxify ourselves from the mindsets that enabled us to keep going along with that stuff, right? Versus saying like, nope, I'm not doing that anymore. Okay. So how do we do this? So you're like, okay, Becky, that's really nice. This is what I mean by like the inner work of social change. How can we do this? And my answer to this, I have 5 hacks that I'm going to share with you of what things that I do to do the best I can on almost like decolonizing and detoxifying my brain, right? But so I'm going to give you those 5 hacks, and then we're going to make it experiential and interactive. But the very first thing I want to share is, I believe, is this quality of humility, right? Is it starts with our humility. The quality, the definition being the quality or state of not thinking you're better than anybody, right? Like just being able to get ourselves into a place of humility and curiosity, right? This is one of the linchpins. This is one of the things that gets us into that space where we can get curious about what's going on in here, because it's not about that other stuff yet. It's not about anything outside. It's about what's going on inside, right? So you can do that. So one of the things that I learned from one of my mentors, Katie Hendricks, is how important it is as a human, but also even as a living organism, to stay open to learning, to stay open to discovery. And she made a +1 to +10 and a -1 to -10 scale that just had some markers, and I think they are actually pretty accurate, some markers of where am I on the openness to discovery scale. And if we're in the plus numbers, and I'm going to show you the scale, and if we're in the plus numbers on openness to discovery, so from +1 to +10, we're actually able to be creative, to be authentic, to really connect with other people. We're able to make changes in the world from the plus numbers. The plus numbers is where the good stuff gets done. But anytime we're not humble, anytime we're like, we think we know the answers, or anytime we think we're better than somebody else, what can happen is we can go into the minus numbers. And from -1 to -10, as we get less and less and less and less and less curious about what's actually happening. And we get more and more and more entrenched in our stories, essentially. And I think one of the key work of being a social change leader is to fall more in love with our aliveness than with our stories, right? But we all do this when we go into our reactive brains. So Juliet, you'll recognize the drama triangle here. So my friend Lorelei made it. Let's look at the minus numbers in 3 separate ways. Let's look at it from the villain. So the villain is pointing its finger and like blaming and criticizing and like, no, you're the problem, you know? The victim is sort of collapsing and fainting and like, oh, it's never going to change, right? And sort of resigned in these ways. And the hero is like, I'll save the day, and runs in to rescue things. And so these are all ways that we can effectively try to cope with uncertainty, with chaos, with things that are causing stress in our lives, with our stressors. So, and we're going to come back to this slide. Don't worry. I would definitely recommend taking a screenshot so you have this for the rest of your life. And we'll share these slides, of course. But I want you to start getting curious about, what are my minus numbers? Do I go in the minus numbers? Do I tend to go more into villain or victim and hero? And do I do like a -3 or a -7, right? Like, what is it? But what I'm really going to get to is, what plus number can I hold on to even under duress, even when I'm feeling stressed? Is there a plus number that I can hold on to, right? So we're going to spend some time with this, and then I'm going to come back and ask you to reflect on this. My first reflection question, though, is when you feel stressed, when you're stressed about the thing that you put in the thing, which minus number do you go to? And I'm going to give you some examples for me, and I'm going to come back and show this to you again, but let me show you what I do when I'm stressed. Okay. So my first stress thing I do is I go into hero. I'm like, oh, I don't want anybody to be uncomfortable. So let me give someone unsolicited advice. And that's actually a -7 on the openness to discovery is that, right? If someone's not asking for advice, but I'm giving it to them, right? What I'm actually doing is preventing them from their own learning and growth, right? Because I don't want them to be uncomfortable. So I start there. And then when that doesn't work, I go to the villain -7, which is demanding evidence in a hostile manner, right? And this isn't always, I can do all the numbers, but this one is common. And by the way, reason I show these pictures is one of the things we do with persona work is we give our minus numbers a name, right? So I call my hero Eager Beaver, and I just happened to find a mural of a beaver. So Eager Beaver is going to run around and like try to give you advice so you're not uncomfortable, so you're not suffering. But that's not working. Well, it just never works. Unsolicited advice never works. But believe me, I have tried, and I can promise you it never works. So that's how I know, like, oh, I'm out in front of my skis here. My villain, I call it Judge Judy. And Judge Judy, I don't know, she's just an iconic television hero here in the United States who might in fact be immortal. Like, she has looked exactly like this for 30 years. But she demands evidence in a hostile manner. So I'm like, oh, Judge Judy's coming out, right? Like, that's my -7 on the villain side. But then when that doesn't work, what can happen sometimes is I can then go to the victim, because like I've tried everything, right? I've tried to do this, like it's not me, it's you. And then what I end up is what I call my angry penguin. And angry penguin just is like passive aggressive and waddles around the house and does chores and cleans things so that I can have like something to do that's productive because nothing else works. And the victim persona is like the -6 of remembering all the other times they've done this, right? So that's the victim persona. And none of these are capable of really introducing transformation. All of these keep the drama going, right? For me, when I do this. So me having familiarity with how I go into these minus patterns is actually really helpful for me, because over time I learned to catch myself in the game. And Juliet, I saw that you had chatted in, you really love personas. I want to invite you to share, if you want to, anything of how you play with this or how it's been helpful for you and in navigating some of these stressors. But while people are thinking, I want to ask you to put into the chat, when you're stressed about the thing you're stressed about, and you're really feeling stressed, what minus numbers do you go to? And we'll ask you to put those in the chat while I'm going ahead and showing you this, just as a reminder. And so Juliet, anything you would any friendly amendments or insights that you would want to share? I welcome that.
No, I mean, I just love this sort of I've put something in the chat about it, but I've actually got it on my wall, because I think what you need to recognize is when as soon as you're aware you're in that mode or you're in that behavior set, you can quickly get off it. And that's the useful thing about this tool, I find, is the most productive conversation is when you're in adult. And you can quickly go into each of these personas within a minute or 2 minutes of having a chat, and and once you recognize what they are, once you're aware of it, you can then never not be aware of it, and you can check yourself and go, wait a minute, this isn't productive. I need to get into adult. This isn't helpful.
Yeah, I got it. So when you say adult, I think of that as in my my creative brain. I've got to actually activate it. I have to consciously choose to activate a different part of my nervous system, because we're in our fight or flight when we're in these minus numbers. So I'm giving you a lot to take in. I shared some of mine. This is a very meaty slide. But go ahead and look at it. Like, which minus number do you do? And we'll take a couple minutes and let's ask some people to put into the chat, what is a minus number that you have done at least once in your life? Is this like minus number confession time? I showed you mine. Show me yours. So if you're seeing any that look familiar as you're in that stress place, please go ahead and put those in the chat. Like, oh, I do a victim -4, or I step back and let others go first, right? I notice I'm doing a lot and taking on more, right? What is that for you?
Becky, someone mentioned in the chat kind of like -5 all the way across. And so I kind of want to highlight that sometimes there is a particular number and we can sort of be in a pattern of that line specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I just did some -6s and -7s. Yeah. Great. I'm seeing lots in here. Pam, any insights you're seeing?
I see quite a lot of people identifying with various parts of the villain. I'm seeing quite a few heroes, not many people owning up to being a victim.
Totally, because that's, absolutely. So for me, when I first learned about personas, I, for like a year, was like, I don't have a victim persona. And it turns out that when I'm really feeling stress, the victim is underneath all of it. Like the more I unpack it, it's like peeling an onion over time. So the victim, if that's not coming to your awareness as easily, that's something to get even more curious about. But you can start with the ones that are obvious, right? Of like, oh, okay. And then over time be like, oh, Becky told me, remember one day I might start to notice, oh, the victim showing up, right? So, and we've been socialized in different ways. There's probably gender and racial dynamics to this of like what's acceptable, and so there's so much to this, but this is literally something on almost a daily basis as almost a spiritual practice that I come back to of, am I available to learn here? Am I available to learn? And sometimes I'm not, right? Like sometimes I feel protective of somebody or something, and I go into villain, and it'll take me a whole day to go back and say like, hey, so what was the feedback there? And so sometimes it really takes me some time, but it might have used to taken me a year, and now it takes me a day. So that's part of what we can do. So my number one hack that I want to share with you on this, it's helpful to look into our minus numbers. So I don't say that so we can like beat ourselves up or make ourselves wrong or like anything like that. It's just like, oh yeah, like just like Juliet was saying, like, oh, I do this. And then it's in the awareness where you can then shift your consciousness and say, oh, I'm doing that again, so that it's not doing you, right? It's like, there's a difference between being in your minus numbers and just like, this is reality, and being aware that I'm in a minus number. And just having the awareness, it doesn't always fix it immediately. It's kind of some adrenaline in our body we've got to move through. It can be long-standing patterns that we need assistance with to work through, and relationship to work through. And the awareness is absolutely the first thing. But the hack that I want to give you, the little secret shortcut that I've been trying for years, is fake it till you make it. Like, what is one positive number that you can decide right now that I am going to claim this plus number as my own? This is my go-to positive number, that when I'm noticing I'm doing a minus number, I'm going to uncross my arms. I'm just going to try for a +1. I'm just getting started on this, and or I'm going to strive to express genuine curiosity about anything that comes up when I catch myself doing a minus number. I'm going to openly wonder about the issue using my whole body. So I'm very much about reclaiming our full bodies, not just our brains, right? I'm going to express appreciation for the messenger and the message, regardless of how they delivered it, because everything is feedback, right? Everyone's my ally. Everything is feedback for me to help me tune into what I'm really about creating in my life. So Mark is saying, like, I'm going to move to a +10. I'm going to actually start implementing, requesting, planning, actions, doing all those things, right? And you can see the more we get into the 7s, the 8s, and the 9s, we're in a generative, creative place, right? That's where we're going, right? What I did for me when I first learned about this was I was like, you know what? I am going to make it my habit to strive for a +4 when I'm in duress, that I'm able to appreciate both the message and the messenger, even if I disagree, even if it's something hurtful, because that is actually a gift for me, for my own consciousness. And there was a period of time where I'd be like, thank you, I really appreciate that. And it only became true almost after I said it, right? Like, so I'm like, it's like, it was a little bit of fake it till you make it. And then I got in the habit and I was like, yeah, that's actually really good information for me. Thank you. You know? So yeah, Mo, you're putting in the +9, feeling and showing genuine enthusiasm about the possibilities. This is all fabulous. So what's a plus number? What is a plus number that you can hold on to, that you can take on for practice? So just give you one more moment to pick what your plus number is. Right. And if you already have your plus number, I want to invite everybody, because we've been sitting for a little while, to just get up and move a little bit, to stretch, to breathe. I'm going to do it too. See these plus numbers coming in. Great. Ruth +5. And go ahead and give yourself a stretch while you're doing that, because an hour is a long time to be sitting. Nina, I see you're +5. That's great. Pam a +5, Jan a +9, Ruth a +5. These are all great. Thank you. Right. +9. Wow. Genuine enthusiasm about possibilities. Got some dreamers on this call. Fabulous. Okay. Louise with the +4. All right. I got my +4 people here. Sarah with +6, requesting information examples from a place of wonder and curiosity. Great. All right. So that is this. And if you want to take a screenshot, I'm going to hold it up for one more second, and or we can send this to you. When I first learned about this, I laminated this and carried this around with me all the time, to where it got ingrained, where I could like, okay, this is happening for me, right? So first hack is get humble, stay curious, and fake it till you make it. Pick a plus number and just ride or die with your plus number, right? That's my first one. The second one I want to share a little bit of story. So this is literally, I am sitting right here, right now in my backyard. And I want to tell you a story about something that was another opening for me to being able to, another set of skills that I want to give you for getting back into our creative brain, as Juliet was talking about. So during the pandemic, my wife and I both worked from home, and we have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old. And so they were home from school. We both own or executive directors of separate businesses. And we both used to work all the way up until the daycare was closing, basically, you know, and I would do the walk of shame to be the last person in to pick up my kid. And she was still commuting on a train. Like, we did really long days and would even work into the evenings, all these overwork and overwhelms that you see. And then when the pandemic happened, we're like, oh my gosh, we've got to take care of our children and keep our businesses running, keep our businesses alive, right? Like, keep things going. And how we arranged it was, she would have the kids from 8:30 to 12:30 every day while I would work. We would stop and have lunch together from 12:30 to 1, which was lovely, by the way. And then from 1 to 5, I would have the kids while she would work. At 5, we would stop, we'd make dinner. 8 o'clock, we'd put the kids to bed. And then most nights, she and I would work late into the night just to stay caught up with things, right? And that's how we made it work for about a year, actually, you know, close to a year. And we're really fortunate that we were able to make that work and that we're alive. Like, there's so much to be grateful for in this. And we decided when the pandemic hit, like, this is going to be something that goes down in history. It's in the history books forever. And they're going to be asked about this when, like, what was it like, and blah, blah, blah. And like, let's have our kids look back on this as like, they're bewildered that this was a horrible time, that they were like, this was actually a magical part of my childhood, that we got to be with our parents so much and with each other. So that was our intention of what we wanted to set up and keep our businesses alive. So one day I was out here working, just sitting right in this chair where I am right now. And that's the tree that's behind me that you see. And it was like 12:40, and like, I turned into a mom pumpkin, right? Like I need to get in, I need to make lunch, I got to do these things. So I scoop up my laptop and I get my iced tea and I get my water bottle and I get my phone and I get my glasses and I get my the papers and I literally had like every day I just have this like pile of stuff that I'm bringing from the outside into the inside of our home. And you can see it better here. So this is our kitchen and this is our master bedroom. And we had had a little mini office here. So I was walking with all my stuff across this here. And I got to this bedroom and the sliding glass door was locked. It was like, and I was like, and I've got all my stuff, you know, and I felt irritated. And I know because my mother-in-law does this. So my mother-in-law, as soon as you go to her house and she welcomes you into the house, she locks the door behind you. And you were like, it's broad daylight, Joan, you know, and it's just a habit, right? So I knew I had come out this door in the morning, and for some mysterious reason at 10 o'clock in the morning, my wife had locked this door, and we were, you know, we were all up on top of each other at this point, right? So I was like, okay, openness to discovery, you know, I feel a little irritated, but it's not a big deal. So I walk back over here to the kitchen, and I'm like, let's just not make a big deal about this, you know, and my mother-in-law's name is Joan. So I walk in the house, I've got all my junk, and I'm like, oh, did Joan come visit us this morning? Note, when mildly irritated, don't bring your mother-in-law into it. I think don't compare your spouse to their mother. That's ill-advised. And my wife was not having it that day. She was like, do you have a request? And I was like, you know, no, I'm just irritated, you know? So then inside the house, I walked all the way back. I put all my junk back down. And while I was walking, and this is how this openness to discovery can work, I was like, what all that's happening, really all that's happening is I felt mildly irritated when I went to the door and it was locked. So I kind of angry penguin back to the kitchen over here. I go to my wife who's like making little sandwiches for the kids. And I said, okay, well, what was going on was I felt mildly irritated when you locked the door. And she was still not having it. And she was like, do you have a request? You know? And I was like, yeah, don't lock the door. You know what I mean? And this is something that I'm sure all of you have had really stupid arguments like this with your significant other. We were in couples therapy over Zoom with, by the way, Julie Caldwell, who I'm about to show you some of her stuff. It was extraordinary therapy. If you're having any challenges at all, I cannot recommend it anybody better than Julie Caldwell. But I'll tell you what I did in my brain. I was like, wait, like I used I statements. I own my feelings. I did everything right. I was like, we're going to bring this up in therapy, and next week I'm going to win. I'm going to win couples therapy. And I was like, I've got this one. Like, this is closed case. Like, I felt mildly irritated when you locked the door. That is fair game. There has to be room for me, you know, that kind of thing. So we go into couples therapy over Zoom, and I'm like, Julie, all that happened was I felt mildly irritated when I tried to open the door. And Julie said something that I promise you has changed the course of my life, and I want to share it with you now. So Julie said this, Becky, all you can really know is how you feel in a given moment. You don't even know why you feel the way you feel. All you can know is how you feel. You don't even know why. And I was like, yes, I do. And she's like, no, you don't. And I was like, she locked the door. She's like, how do you know that that's why you felt irritated? What were you working on when you were sitting at the table? Did you actually want to stop working, or did you have more that you needed to do? Are you feeling like it's too much? What were you thinking as you got to the door? Like, what are you sure that's it? And I was like, no, actually I'm not. I just felt mildly irritated, you know, right? And so this has been absolutely life-changing for me. And this is what Julie's thing is. It's another way to look at that openness to discovery and close to discovery. Julie makes the line here, and this is off of David Hawkins' energetic maps, using, and basically from neutrality up is when we're in this space, we can dismantle these oppressive structures. We can change business as usual. When we're in neutrality, acceptance, appreciation, love, joy, and peace, we can rock it. We can do anything, right? We can do anything, anything, anything. But as soon as we slip into pride, and she defines pride as thinking you're better than anybody else, right? And then we slip down from there, the energy gets lower and lower and lower and closer to death in terms of energy, as we go from anger to agitated fear, to frozen fear, to sadness. Despair is like, I'm not even going to be sad anymore because nothing's coming, to guilt, which is, I did something bad, to shame, which I am bad. Shame is the closest energy to death, right? So anything that's down here, which is, by the way, all the minus numbers that we saw in openness discovery are what she calls below the line here, right? We're in our reactive brain. We're in our fight or flight. And what Julie does, and I'm going to share this with you, is she has 3 questions and that she asks, depending on where you are on the minus number. So you locate yourself like, what was that? I was like, oh, okay, I was irritated. I was angry. And she has 3 questions. And if you really answers those questions, it's a trick because it gets you back to neutrality. You're not in it anymore. You're reflecting on it. You're neutral. You're just with it. You're able to be with what is, and then you're above the line again. So let me show you Julie's 3 hacks that really let us have peace in our home again, right? So one is, if you're feeling angry, what are you getting that you don't want? Or what are you not getting that you do want? And this is for you and for others. And to be with whatever comes up as the answer, so that then we can do something about it. But first we got to know what it is. What are you getting that you don't want or not getting that you do want? Now, when sadness comes up, and I think there's a lot of grieving collectively for all us to do, the question, the shortcut to get back to neutrality is, what is the perceived loss? So sadness or despair, what is the perceived loss? And when it's fear or guilt or shame, the same question, or pride, the question is what do you really want? And this is what puts us in a place of being able to take responsibility for our own lives. To get into healthy responsibility is getting clear on what we actually want. So of all of these oppressive dynamics and all of the overwork and overwhelm, the question is, well, what do you want? What do you want instead? We can't create something new while we're reacting against those things. We've got to get ourselves back to neutrality where we're clear on what we really want, right? We have to shift control, to control, alt, delete, business as usual, right? To reimagine a better future, to create that better future, right? We can't do it in the minus numbers. We've got to do it in the plus numbers. We've got to do it above the line. So those 3 questions, I want you to write those down. If someone's coming at you hot with anger, you can be like, hey, what are you getting that you don't want? And your presence with them can transform that situation. If someone's afraid and stuck, it's like, well, what do you really want here? Tell me what you really want, right? And if someone is sad, it's like, well, what is the perceived loss? What are we mourning here, right? So these are now I've got 2 hacks for you. One is like pick a plus number, and the other is these 3 presencing questions. I'll pause and just see if there's any questions, anything in the chat to talk about. Great. Selena, thank you for sharing the podcast episode. Yeah, that podcast episode with Julie was fabulous. Great. Yeah. Okay, good. If you have any questions, please ask them. These are things that I'm imagining that this is not a typical webinar for you all, but I'm really hoping that these are gifts for you in being able to create these shifts. So, and go ahead and stretch and move and breathe and get up and move around. I've got 3 more hacks that I want to share with you. We are right on time. We're even a little bit ahead of schedule. So the next one is, let me tell you, this one has me, I want to offer this other gift that's really current for me, which is how important appreciation is. So remember on Julie Caldwell's map here, appreciation up here, appreciation, this one for me is like my go-to above the line one. And I'll tell you how important this is. So one of the things that I did during the pandemic was we also had the racial reckoning after the killing of way too many Black and brown people by our police. We last summer, and I think it was in England too. There's a global reckoning on this. The work is not done. Very little has changed, quite frankly. It's very discouraging. I was appointed to our community's police commission to advise and provide, not really technically even oversight powers, but on our police force. And I was appointed specifically to bring an anti-racist lens to the work. Up until last summer, our police commission was basically a cheerleader squad for our police force. So everything that they did, the police commission was like, that's great. And then me and one other person were appointed, and we started just asking some harder questions like, are we disproportionately stopping or arresting people of color in our community? Like, what's actually happening? And that group meets once a month. And I started to realize that I was in almost like a despair or a depression for 2 or 3 days after it would meet, because what I was experiencing when I was on those commissions was effectively being people wanting to shut down my voice. People wanted to drown it out. It was gaslighting. It was racist dog whistles, right? It was basically underhanded tactics to hide the truth from our residents and to preserve the status quo, and which is racist in the United States when it comes to policing. So as I realized that I was like, oh my God, I hate this, you know, and I think it's such important work, but for 3 days I would be in a funk because I was putting all of my energy on my minus numbers of what a bunch of jerks everyone else on the police commission was. Right? Like I was like in minus numbers for sure of like, I can't believe I have to work with these turkeys. Right. Now, the only reason I volunteered to be on this commission anyways was because I'm part of a local organization that is advocating and working for racial justice. It's called Claremont Change. It's very mom and pop. It's very grassrootsy. And those people I love. Those people have become family for me. Those people throughout the police commission meetings are on a 30-person text chain and making jokes and laughing while they're advocating and being sassy and all kinds of things. And what I realized, and this was a pivotal moment for me, and this changed my relationship to these terrible, very good, very bad, no good police commission meetings, was I was putting my attention on my colleagues on the police commission, and that I have the power and the ability to shift my attention consciously to appreciating my colleagues in Claremont Change, in the advocacy side. So I started very consciously during the police commission meeting and immediately following police commission meetings, texting everyone who was part of the advocacy and appreciating them for their contributions, appreciating them for their solidarity, appreciating them for the good points they made, and boom, no depression, no despair. And all that happened was I decided to stop focusing on this and start focusing on that and to appreciate. So appreciation is a hugely, hugely powerful lever. It also can help shift us out of entitlement when we're feeling entitled to something, right? Because we're not entitled to anything ever, right? So, but what is this power of appreciation is really, really, really huge. And so I want to just give you a chance to practice your muscle. And we're going to put this in another klaxoon board, is just to do it right now. Is like, what is one thing that you can appreciate in your life right now, exactly as it is? So let's put that klaxoon board in, if we could, please. Thank you, Selena. And let's look at and this one is a little bit different from the other ones we've done. So this klaxoon board it's a jam board. I don't know if you've done that. I think you all do murals some. So what this one is when you get the link and you get in there, I see 15 of you are in there already. Thank you for coming over. Is you click on the plus number, and one thing that I can appreciate right now, just as it is the beautiful weather today. So I just typed that in. You can pick what color sticky you want, by the way, here. And then you press this green paper airplane type of thing. Boom, someone already got it. Family. Yeah, me too, right? So what is something that you can appreciate right now exactly as it is? Amen. Being alive, not to be taken for granted, right? Ooh, my car. I love it. Others experience, family. Okay. And if something someone else appreciates, you're appreciating too. I'll show you a little trick here. We've got the families clustered. You can click on it and then you can click the little heart and be like, me too. And we'll see the things where there's a lot of things. Right. Having a job, not to be taken for granted. All right. Having my children around me. Me too. Oh my God. We love to have my kids around. Yeah. We miss them now that they're back in school. My partner. Yeah. Yep. Me too. Yep. Working from home. Yeah. Nature. Right. So this is what we can put our attention on. I'm feeling myself taking like deeper belly breaths as we read this, right? Like having my children around me, my home. Yeah, there's stuff we can appreciate. The beauty of the autumn colors. My grandson. Someone brought their grandson to our house last night. It was so fun. All right. Health and happiness. Great. Good. Keep these coming, right? Right. Nothing to be taken for granted, right? And so appreciation is a massively powerful shift move. And it can seem, I don't know, like before I started really playing with it and putting it in my life, I was like, yeah, appreciation, but like, do you appreciate yourself? What can you appreciate about yourself right now? Right? Like, is that something that a gift you can give yourself? I love hot showers. I had 3 months of hot showers when I was deployed to Haiti once. Amen to that. If I got a shower at all, right? Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah, being able to eat and drink what I want. Yeah. Good. These are all great. We got some grandchildren energy kicking here. Someone's appreciating their dog. Absolutely. Right. So when we turn our attention to what we can appreciate, that actually takes up more of our consciousness and it starts to squeeze out the other stuff. Like, and then your brain is like primed to be creative, to connect, right? To do things. We have a coaching community where every other week or so we have one of our transformational coaches and it's like an open call. And Mike Thompson always opens up his call with an appreciation protocol, which is, what can you appreciate about your life exactly as it is right now? And what can you appreciate about yourself right now to give yourself that appreciation? And so this is like a sleeper cell. Like this is a surprisingly effective shift move that is available to you at all times as you get to choose where you want to put your attention. So I want to thank you for taking a moment to generate that space. And this is kind of the magic move of this is what you appreciates. It becomes bigger in your life, right? Like the more energy and attention I put into my fellow advocates in Claremont Change, the more space that begins to take up in my life and the more of a positive thing that is. And then it just squeezes. I don't have room to be complaining about my fellow police commissioners, right? Because there's so much that I'm actually appreciating. I don't have room for that other thing. If there's a challenge, I will address it, but I'm not going to dwell on it. I'm going to put my energy and attention on where my appreciation is, right? So, okay. Got 2 more that I want to share with you. I just want to make sure that everybody can move and breathe. Why don't we all just get up for a second and keep ourselves in or if you're able to get up, but stretch something that feels good to stretch. Get a drink of water. Shake things out. Give yourself a little shake. All right. How's this going? Let me just check in and see on the chat. Is some of this resonating for you? Is this helpful? Are these relevant? Are you starting to see connections of like how you can apply some of these to beginning to dismantle these biggest challenges? Let me try this. I won't just look to the chat, but for the people who are on camera, if you could give me a thumbs up or thumbs down, thumb sideways. And if you're only on, if you're not on camera, that's fine. But if you could use a little, the thumbs up or yeah, great. because I don't want to just be blabbing away, talking to myself like, you know, in my backyard. Good. I wish we were together in person, but we're making the best of this for sure. Okay. All right. Please make sure you get what you need. Like put questions in the chat, right? If you're like, yeah, but blah, blah, blah. Good. Okay. So good. Good. I'm glad you're having this me time. Good. Okay. So this one is, it might make you a little uncomfortable actually, but that's okay. This one made me uncomfortable, this next one. And this one is not actually about work. This is about your life. This is about the wholeness of who you are. So one of the things I did during the pandemic was I wanted to benchmark how Tony Robbins does trainings. This is someone who for decades has been training people, and he trains thousands of people at the same time. And he shifted to online. And I had watched the Netflix special, I'm Not Your Guru. And I was like, I got to see how Tony trains all these people, because that's what I do for a living, right? And I took a course with him that had 18,000 other people on it at the same time. And I was blown away. First of all, like just like 18,000 people, right? And people were really engaged. It was absolutely fascinating. But there was one thing he said that just went straight into my soul. And he has these little pithy quotes, and it's kind of one of his things. But he said, success without fulfillment is the ultimate failure. And I heard that and I was like, yeah, you know, and then I was like, wait a minute. Like, I don't even know what fulfills me anymore. Like, I've been so busy surviving for this last year or so that I've completely taken thriving off the table. Like, I don't even remember what it is that brings me, I can't put my finger on what brings me the most fulfillment. I can't even totally pinpoint it. And it really got me on this thing. It was like, oh, and I share this for you. If you're like, oh, I know what fulfills me, it's my grandchildren. Boom, easy, great, you know. But if you've been in this survival mode, we've been so busy surviving that we've forgotten to thrive. So I just want to just wiggle in a few minutes here to get curious around, is there something that you can align in your life that's also going to bring you more fulfillment? And so I want to give you a hint, and this is what I've learned so far, is it's probably not on your to-do list. Like, we're going off script here into it's not on your to-do list. It's not something you should do, right? And I'll give you the example is that ever since I got out of the military, where I used to work out for an hour a day and I was in my 20s, I have, if I had a to-do list, which I often do, probably every single day, something on there would be something I should do because I should lose 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 30 pounds, depending on what was going on in my life, right? How well I was able to attend to my own wellness. So what, 1 to 2 stones, right? Like, so just depending. And for 20 years now, it's been something that's on my to-do list. It's something I put in air quotes, do, because the villain uses the should word, right? And it's not motivating for me. It doesn't fulfill me at all, right? Like, and I've had this like, oh, I should do it and I should be healthy and blah, blah, blah. And like lasagna wins every time, you know? Skipping the workout because I'm feeling tired because it's a hard day wins every time. And what I realized is I didn't have a reason for doing it, right? I didn't have something I wanted more than a piece of pizza, right? And so I needed to want something more, and I couldn't muster my intrinsic motivation purely for a health outcome. And then we finally got to go on holiday this summer. And I want to show you, this is my son Huck and doing his first surf lesson. It was a tandem surf lesson. And this is my daughter Vivian getting up on a wave, right? And by the way, getting up on a very little wave, like someone you can ride a wave that little. Now, when I was in my 20s, when I lived in Hawaii, I surfed after work almost every day. And it brought me tremendous fulfillment. It was truly, truly it's like my happy place. And I was out in the water with them for 2 hours while they were getting their surf lessons. I had even gotten a new board that I could use. It was shaped just for me. I was so excited to be on my board. And we had, this is one of those surf breaks where they have a photographer with a zoom lens so they could get these really close up, just really cute pictures of my kids, right? And I was like, oh, if I get up on a wave, will you get one of me too? And this is the picture she has of me because I did not even get up on a wave. I flapped around for 2 hours and didn't even get on a wave, right? And although you can, like, it is a very cool surfboard. But what I realized as I thought about it was like, oh, what I want, what I feel, what would bring me tremendous fulfillment is this vision of getting up on all kinds of waves with my kids, right? All the time, like taking my kids surfing and enjoying this with them well into my old age, right? Well into my old age. That is on. So that is my thing, right? And I was like, oh, I want to be a surfer again. I want to be a surfer again. It's not on your to-do list. It's on your to-be list. That's the more important list, right? So what I did was I Googled what are exercises you can do when you're not on the water that are going to help you be more able for surfing. And it's push-ups, pull-ups, deadlifts. It's like hang cleans. It's kettlebells, things I do, rowing. I have all that equipment, but before I was using that equipment because I should lose weight. But since I've tapped into this I want to be a surfer again. I am a surfer. I made a rule that I can't come in from my garage without doing 3 pull-ups. And I do 10, 12 pull-ups a day. I can feel my upper body strength getting stronger, right? And I have not missed that even when I have to go back out in the garage because my hands were full of groceries, right? It is like, this is important to me now. And that's the shift, right? It's connected to something I really want. I don't write it down on my to-do list anymore. I don't need to remind myself anymore. This is who I am. Right. And the other exercising, right? Like as long as I am not coming down with something or not feeling well, I am doing 15 to 20, 15 minutes a day. And as I'm doing it, even as I'm doing push-ups, I can literally see myself pushing up on a surfboard to catch that wave. Right. So, and I'm happy because I'm not doing it because I should. So I'm just offering this as like a bonus thing that I want to share with you because this has changed things for me, you all, because this isn't just only about surfing or exercise or whatever. This is about everything. It's the same process of it all goes back to, and Tony asked the same questions as Julie Caldwell asked, so there's no coincidences here, is what do you really want? Why do you want it? And how are you going to do it? How are you going to do it's easy. Once you know what you really want, again, Katie Hendricks, Julie Caldwell, Tony Robbins, same question. What do you really want? Why do you want it? I want to be surfing with my kids in my 80s, right? That's my dream. Okay, well now it's easy. Now I just got to do 3 pull-ups every time I come in the house. And that's joyful versus a drag, right? So I just want to offer that for you because this is, for me, part of disrupting this cycle is I think some of us have forgotten about fulfillment in this when we've been in survival mode. And maybe it's okay. I know winter is coming, but maybe now it's okay to go back again and remember, like, what is it who do I want to be, right? And this question is just a journal question. If you want to put it in the chat, feel free to, but I really want this to be just for you, is who do you want to be? Do you want to be a surfer? Do you want to be a wonderful grandparent, right? Do you want to be a magical grandparent? You want to create the best Christmas ever for your kids? Like, what is it? Do you want to be a really generous boss? Right? Like, who do you want to be? So I'll just give you a minute to do some journaling on your own. And if anything comes on the chat, Pam and Selena, please feel free to share it. Hey, Juliet, not oversharing at all. I want to be an actor. Yeah, I love it. Hey, and
That
there's so
brings me
many. Yeah, say more about that. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it brings me joy. I took up acting. I did it when I was younger, and I took it up a couple of years ago. And even I found it was a two-hour class, evening class. This is pre-COVID, obviously, and for those 2 hours, I just lost myself. I didn't think about work. I would go there like all hunched up and stressed, and we'd do some exercise and stuff, and I'd come out just feeling. I wouldn't think about anything else except what I was doing in the moment in that class, and it was just amazing. So yeah, I want to pick that up again now that we're coming out of COVID or coming out of lockdown.
Amen for that. Good. That's Julia. And losing track of time, we're going to pick up on that in the next, the fifth hack. But that's a good sign. I love that. And Mustafa wants to be me, reconnect with the true me, and be at peace with myself, and a drummer. All right, that's great, Mustafa. Thank you. Louise, I want to be sat outside my tent, reading my book, breathing fresh air, experiencing a different perspective on life. Awesome. Kiana, I want to be a mom. Yeah. Okay. This is it. This is the good stuff in life, y'all, right? It's not that transactional comprehensiveness stuff, right? Like if you got to suck that up in service of this other thing, like, okay, but also if we're really going for and fulfillment, like we could also probably make some changes together, right? Like, because we are co-creating with one another and with our colleagues a better alternative, right? Like something that really serves life, right? Those plus numbers on the openness to discovery, or on Julie's scale, like the love, the appreciation, those are energies, those are vibrational levels that are supportive of life. The other vibrational levels are actually moving towards death. And I think everyone here is here because ultimately there's like a sincere love and respect for life, right? So that is hack number 4, is let's double down on fulfillment. Everyone else is, people going and living in their vans, they're doing it. Like, I think I want you to get to do it too. So see a few more things coming in on the chat here. So Mark I want to be back on the road touring the States with my beautiful wife, meeting beautiful people, and eating amazing food and drinking myself silly and having a party. Awesome. And awesome. Good. Sue, I want to create wonderful memories for my children and grandchildren. And when I'm not around anymore, I want them to say, remember when we did this with Nan, with a smile and a joy. That's it, right? That smile and that joy lives on. Pam, I want to be busting cool moves at the roller disco. Yes, that's so cool, Pam. To be fully present with my family and friends. Yeah, I want to thrive instead of just survive, to prioritize myself and spend more time in the fresh air. That's it. And we can choose to do this, right? These are things where, there's a lot more to it, right? We've probably got to set some boundaries. We've probably got some agreements we need to change. There's more to the story, and this is all within the realm of possible, right? As we come back, I don't want anybody to go back to the way things were. I want us to create something new. So the last thing I want to share with you, I want to really make this concrete and real for you. So just give you a chance to put into the chat, when you were a kid, and some folks alluded to this, of things they loved when they were younger, whether it was like drumming or roller skating or acting or dancing, whatever. What did you love doing when you were a young child that, just like Juliet was saying, you could do it for hours on end, and you lost track of time, and it brought you great joy? That people had to like beg you to come in for dinner and eat your dinner because you were just having so much fun playing, whatever that was. You didn't want to stop playing. Sarah wants to come to Coachella. Hey, that's about an hour away from us. We're on the other side of those mountains that you see. That's great, Sarah. All right. So someone was playing soccer, Mike, right? Playing outside with friends, spending time in nature, riding my bike. Absolutely. Playing with my dolls, with their really good outfits, walking around the village, reading a book, playing outside. These are all great. Playing with friends. And what were you doing while you were playing? Like, right? Like, what was the part of the playing that you got most seduced by, right? Where you lost the most track of time? when I was a kid, I used to love tinkering. And I used to love experiments, right? Like there was this, in the 70s, there was this commercial of a tree that had packs of bubble gum hanging on it instead of fruit. And I was absolutely convinced that if I buried and watered a piece of gum, that it would grow into a gum tree, and then I would have as much gum as I wanted. So I buried a piece of bubble gum in the ground and watered it every day, and would go check on it. Right. And doing little science experiments like that made me really, really happy. Although in the gum case, I will confess that it did not grow into a bubblegum tree, and I dug it up and I ate it. I ate the gum. I was like, we're not letting this gum go to waste, right? So like, what were those things? But I still tinker, right? I like to try things. I like to try things on for size. I like to experiment. That still brings me great joy. I like to see like, oh, how's that going to work, right? So like, what is it that you're actually doing? So now that I'm a parent, I can see this in my kids. So I want to share with you, it's like right here in my backyard. Actually, we've renovated a little, but this is about right where I'm sitting right now. Our son Huck makes sculptures, and this is from when he was 3. And I don't know if you can see, but this is this is a little side table, like a little place where you would put like a little drink or a cup of coffee. It's upside down, so the legs are pointing up, and then he has another table balancing the legs on it. And then he's balancing some balls and a baseball bat. And notice the baseball bat is perpendicular. It's like his version of crop circles. Like it's a mystery. He couldn't reach this high. We don't know how he does these things. But we go outside and we're like, what did Huck do? You know? And we just see these things. One day I was cleaning up, and it was cleaning up after them, and you know, Angry Penguin was like doing chores, and I was like, this is the 3rd day in the row that didn't I just clean this up yesterday? And every day he would tilt a chair backwards, put that box right in front of it, and then lay this pink thing perpendicular to it, just like the baseball bat in this one, right? And I was like, what is this dude doing? And then one day I went to go pick him up at preschool, doing the walk of shame, because I'm the last one to pick my kids up, right? And I look out of the corner of my eye and I see this, and he was 4 at this age. And I was like, was Huck here? And the teacher's like, oh yeah, he got all the kids building that too, you know? And like everything has a purpose, right? It's all at these angles, it's balanced in a certain way. And this is just what Huck does. You know, this is who he is. This is what he does. And Vivian, though, our daughter, she is, and this is so gendered, and it's a mystery, because my wife and I have been really raising them to like, you can do whatever you want, you can be whatever you want. But Vivian is so nurturing. It's amazing. And so at her school, they give away, if you get a boo-boo, if you're hurt, they give you an ice pack. And it's kind of a placebo, but the kids want an ice pack if they're not feeling okay. Vivian puts ice packs on her stuffed animals. All her stuffed animals get an ice pack or a Band-Aid. And I just find this stuff around the house. And I even went to go pick her up at the preschool one day. And I was like, oh, is that Vivi's Margaret doll from Daniel Tiger? And the teacher was like, Margaret's convalescing. Like Vivi had made a hospital bed for Margaret. And then all of their stuffed animals have Band-Aids. She just sat outside last night with one of our fellows who's a veterinarian, and they did veterinary work on their stuffed animals. I finally thought I had found a stuffed animal that didn't have a Band-Aid. And then I was like, oh, nope, it has an ear one. It's like, that is all. Vivian is just such a natural comforter and caretaker. Right. And this is who they are. We didn't encourage it. We didn't teach it. We don't reinforce it. We're just like, that's interesting. And I'm definitely curious how that's going to express and manifest itself as they grow older. I see it as my sacred duty as one of their parents to never do anything that discourages or stifles them from exploring their own creativity and discovering who they are, whatever that may be. And I'm genuinely curious and honored that I get a front row seat as they discover that. And I'll tell you what, I will be angry as hell if someone ever says you shouldn't do that. If someone tells Vivian she shouldn't be doing those things, or someone tells Huck his sculptures are stupid, like I'm going to be like, oh, now those are fighting words, right? Like I feel fiercely protective of those parts of my children. And because I know how important it is, that what a through line those are, that's part of why I think they're here on this planet that I can't understand or know. And they're, as if things go as they should, they'll be here long after I'm gone, doing those things that they're here to do, being the people that they're here to be. So this next thing that I want to share with you is, how can you take that thing that you love from your childhood and pull that strand all the way through so you're expressing it in your work still, even if it got squeezed out of you? How can you take, by the way, riding your bike, the thing you were doing when you're riding your bike, reading a book, playing with the other kids, walking through the village? How can you incorporate the essence of that? Like, Huck is probably not going to, build sculptures with bats and balls for a living. That's probably not a profession, but I'm imagining that envisioning and then that pattern creation will somehow be a part of something he brings into this world. So whatever that was for you, I want to give you an opportunity to do some real concrete reflection on this. And I want to give you 4 concepts. This is from Gay Hendricks. It's in the handout that we're going to give you as well. We can put the genius worksheet in that, because you're going to do a worksheet about this, and you're actually going to look at your diary for a typical week and see what percentage of your time are you spending in each of these zones. Gay talks about these in the genius zone, and he talks about it in his book, The Big Leap. So the first zone is your genius, and your genius is you're really good at it. You love doing it. It's just like Juliet was saying, you lose track of time, and the outcome is outstanding, right? Like this is I am in flow, and this is a good thing. And how much of your time in any given week are you spending in your genius zone where you're getting to do that? The next zone is your zone of excellence. It's things you do that you're still good at it, but you feel tired and depleted when it's done. So there, if you're spending a lot of time in that space, you have an unconscious commitment to doing pretty well, but you're playing it safe. You're not playing full out in your genius in your life. And that's okay. If spending a lot of time in our excellence and genius is like, that's where we want to be most of the time, as long as there's a lot of genius in there as well. Okay. Competence, as we go down to this zone, is things you keep doing that other people can actually do better than you. Right. And sometimes we do that because we just have to, because there's just nobody else here and somebody's got to do it. Right. But especially when we're in leadership and management positions, we want to be able to change our situation so that we can redistribute that work needs to be done, so that those things that are in your zone of competence are in someone else's zone of genius. It's not about individualism or you needing to be the best or in genius. It's about, across my team, can I cross-level genius? And then your zone of incompetence is like, quite frankly, you're just bad at it. Okay. And we're all better off for you being honest about it, so we don't have to have awkward performance review conversations. Right. And so on this one, if you're spending a lot of time in a zone that you're incompetent, it's just really an unconscious commitment to suffering and frustration. And my favorite quote about this isn't about like you or a weakness. Like, I'm so not into improving on weaknesses. Right. But it's that your zone of incompetence is where you need others. Right. Because we can't expect any one person to be great at everything. So I want to give you some time to actually look at your genius, to look at your diary and see how you're spending your time in a random week. Just have it be a typical week, right? A fairly typical week, and start to categorize it in the worksheet that we'll put in the chat. If you that has, or just even in your, you can open up the worksheet, but where you're like, okay, which of these things, first, which was zone of genius? Which of these things on my calendar was I losing track of time? Was I doing really, was I really in flow here? Yes, no. Okay. The next question is, well, was I pretty good at it? But honestly, I'm a little bit drained. Okay. Then you go through your calendar again, and which things and how much of your time were you allocating to the things where you're just in your zone of excellence. And then we'll do that for competence and incompetence. And I want to give you, this is perfect time. I want to give you 7 minutes to go through 1 week and just pull out, oh, this was actually genius. I need more of this. We have a whole 6-week course on this, by the way. So there's a little bit of a crash course, but this is the one thing that I think can a super high leverage point is, as you identify the things where you're like, oh, I'm on fire, I'm in my genius, We want to see like, well, how can you do more of that? It's like what you appreciates. How can I spend more time on my genius? And how can I, once you do that for yourself, you get a little more breathing room. So then you can turn to the rest of your team and say, how can I support you in being more in your genius? So let's take 7 minutes, and I'll maybe even like play a little song or something. I'm going to play a reflection song for you. And when the song is over, that'll be it. But if you have time to go to 2 weeks, that's even better. But look at a typical week and what's in your genius, what's in your excellence, what's in your competence, what's in your incompetence. And thank you, Selena, for putting the genius mapping worksheets in the chat. So let's take those 7 minutes. Any questions before we go? Okay, well, I'm going to play, share the screen and play some songs. I'm going to play one song and it's 7 minutes long. So as you hear it start to fade out, that means we're going to come back. Okay, great. Okay, everyone, welcome back. So I'm hoping you had some time. Appreciate you. First of all, in terms of what you appreciates, I appreciate your willingness to just even face into how am I spending my time? This is one of the things we do in our 6-week genius courses. We actually literally log our time, and we over weeks, over 5 weeks, and we're like, what percentage of our time are we spending in each of these zones? And we've actually added another thing of, well, is this like something because someone needs something from me, or is this like what I actually want to do? And so we're looking at it from sort of two angles, and we're striving collectively to get to where we're spending 50% in our genius, but most people are hovering in the mid 30s. So we started in the low 30s, we're getting to the mid 30s. This requires some changes, but one of my hypotheses just about how we can really make lasting social change is if we can find people whose genius it is for the things that need to be done and then set them free, right? Unleash them to do the things that are truly in their genius that align with what needs to be done. And so I just want to appreciate you for looking into this. And if you're spending a lot of time between excellence and genius and above, that's fabulous. Then what I would encourage you to do at that point is say, great, then how can I do something like this with my team so that they can get more in their genius too? And if there's anything in your competence or incompetence, are there others for whom this is in their excellence or genius, right? And that could we redistribute this? And maybe there's something they're doing that are in their competence or incompetence that maybe I could do, and it wouldn't even feel like work to me, right? That's what we're really striving for, is it doesn't even feel like work, right? It's exactly that feeling Juliet described around the acting of like, what do you lose track of time? I'm gonna bet you, I don't even remember, but I bet you part of why I felt irritated that day when I went into and my mother-in-law locked the door was I was probably in flow. I bet you $100 that's what was going on, is I was totally in flow and I didn't want to stop. But I had to stop because I had to go inside because it was my turn to be with the kids, right? And I had an agreement, right? And that type of thing. So how can we get more time in our flow, right? And then it'll be less burnout. And then how can we structurally redesign so more people can get more time in their genius? So we want to give you one more opportunity. We have one more klaxoon that we're going to put in the chat for you. It's another one of those dry erase board ones where you just get an opportunity to make a declaration of, hey, this is something where I lose track of time and I love doing for whatever it's worth. This is, I'm just going to own this for a minute. And like, it's just us here. Like, we're not going to accuse you of being a tall poppy or too big for your britches. This is just like a moment to say, you know what? I'm going to own this, right? I'm going to own, for me, I really enjoy improv. I lose track of time when we're doing in improvisational, real authentic dialogue with people. That is something I could do all day and it wouldn't feel like work. So what about you? Let's put that klaxoon up. Thank you for putting that link in the chat. And there we go. Let's go over to the klaxoon. It's a different board. So genius declarations. So it's this one. The 10 people are already there. What do you love doing? Right? You lose track of time. Someone loves coaching people. Well, people need coaching, believe me. Good for you. And here's a prompt. If we had more time together, is what is it that you're doing while you're learning, while you're hiking, while you're cooking? What is the genius quality of that, right? So for someone who loves cooking, the genius quality may be that you enjoy the sous chef work, that you just lose track of time when you're cutting the onions or peeling the potatoes or whatever that may be. Another person's, and that there's something where it is in the repetitiveness, and that you find it very soothing, right? For others, it might be that you're actually infusing love into your recipes, and you love not necessarily the cooking, but how nurturing it is for what you're creating people. And for others, what you actually love about cooking might actually be going to the market to source the ingredients, right? And for others, it may be, you know what? I love cooking soups because I can get the flavors just right. I can get the just right balance of flavors. So those are all different examples of like what your cooking genius may be, but you can imagine how each of those things, you could bring the just right balance of ingredients to a work situation, right? So for me, when I go hiking, I love backpacking. I've done some long trails too, and like weeks on the trail. And for me, when I'm really losing myself in hike, what I'm actually doing is being spacious and envisioning possibilities and allowing my mind to be empty so things can flow through. So allowing myself to be inspired, right? And I can do that. I don't have to be in the mountains to do that. So what is the genius quality of these things that you can pull through your whole life, through the totality of your life, right? It maybe as you're walking your dog, you're actually just really appreciating how cute your dog is, but you're also, while you're there, you're stopping and smelling the flowers. And how can you do that metaphorically also in your day-to-day work, whatever those things are? So these are all beautiful, by the way. I want to give folks an opportunity to just see one another's genius. There is genius in this that you can bring into every aspect of your life. Yeah. Someone likes cuddling your dogs and cooking, not at the same time. Thanks, Kiana. That's great. Yeah. It's the weaving of these things that kind of look like they're not work, right? But the essence of that quality that you're bringing into also giving some room for that to insert itself and to bring that into the work. Listening to podcasts because you're listening, right? And what are you listening for, right? You can bring that into your work. All of these genius things are very much of service in the world. And just like my kids, you probably were born this way, right? That there's no coincidences that this is your thing, okay? We should have like a little breakout group for the dog people. I love that. That's wonderful. All right. Okay, so I want to bring this back here. You all have been incredibly attentive and lovely to be with. So to just really review the 5 hacks, right? So when in doubt, get humble and stay curious. If things feel hard, go back to that openness to discovery and scale and say, is there a plus number that I can try on for size that just might work here, right? And if you catch yourself cycling through those minus numbers, how can I interrupt this pattern? Even that is a curiosity, right? I wonder how I can interrupt this pattern because this keeps happening in my life, right? I am somehow participating in this reoccurring in my life, right? The presencing questions. What do you want that you're not getting? What do you not want that you are getting? What is the perceived loss? What do you really want? When in doubt, you can never go wrong asking yourself or someone else, what do you really want? Shifting your focus from blame or criticism or entitlement to appreciation is going to give you some breathing room. It's going to give you aliveness every time. It's going to get you up on above the line on Julie Caldwell's scale. Whatever it is that brings you fulfillment, I am going to declare that it is safe to come out and not only be successful, but also be happy, right? And joyful, to have fulfillment in your life. And if not now, when, right? So to bring that back in, and whatever it was that's in your genius, and pull that thread through. So you're doing more of your genius in your work too. The more we can do that, the more we can really tackle from this place these stressors, these challenges, right? Like when we've done our inner work, we know how we feel, we know what we're getting that we don't want, we know what we really want, when we know what our genius is, when we know what brings us fulfillment, we can create that space for others, right? We model that through our lives. Juliet generously mentioned this book is coming out April 12th. And if any of this interests you, you can even pre-order it on Amazon now. But I I thought I was just going to write this in a weekend. It was kind of all my ideas for how to do the inner work of social change. And it actually took 3 years. It was a little bit, I needed a lot of help to get this done, but a lot of the things that we touched on today, I go into a lot deeper in this book, and I am genuinely excited for this to be out there in the world. My hope is that that this talk today and that this book in the future will be a massive support to people just like you who are endeavoring every day to make the world a better place. So I think we are right at time, and I'm going to stop sharing and hand this back over to my amazing hosts and see, I think we've answered the questions throughout, but I just want to send you all, it's the end of your day. It's the start of my day here. It has been such an honor to start my day with you. And I want to just send you massive appreciation for, I didn't mention this. My sister is a nurse practitioner. She's a cardiac nurse practitioner. My brother-in-law is a firefighter. I've been goofing off at home, bitching about the sliding glass doors. They've been in it every single day. They haven't had time to complain about someone locked the door, right? They haven't been with their children because they've been the first responders. They've been at the hospitals. They didn't get any time off. So I have profound respect for them, profound respect for you. So truly grateful for all the ways you have sacrificed that I will never even know, for all the suffering you've witnessed. And I like feel to the point of tears of my gratitude. And so I wish you all the very best in fulfillment and joy and disrupting business as usual. And thank you for having me today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Becky. That has been really great. And there's been lots of comments in the chat, lots of appreciation going your way for that session. Just really for me to kind of recap some of the points that I'm going to take away and that really struck a chord with me, because there's a lot of parallels that we can see in our systems and where we're working and the things that you have talked about. When you start off with talking about burnout and systemic burnout, and we're not just health here. There are people from the care sector and from other public sectors, so we're all feeling it. Someone said on Twitter, I was reading that we've gone from clap to slap in the space of a year, in terms of we're very appreciated at the beginning, and now we're really feeling the pinch. Anxiety's gone up in the system, performance pressure has gone up in the system, and it's really, nobody's going to tap us on the shoulder and say, hey, come on, you've got to look after yourself, you've got to take that responsibility yourself. I think it's beholden on ourselves to carve out that space, to value that space, and to also model those behaviors so that others in the system see that it's okay to do that as well. So look after yourselves, build habits that keep you well, express gratitude, connect with friends, all that stuff you put in the genius slides. Connect with your friends and your loved ones, spend time in nature, and we've been doing a lot of reflection exactly on that reset that you're talking about. What is it that what do we want to keep that's working well, that we've learned in the last year and a half, and what do we want to let go of, what's not serving us well? And there's lots of things that that we've also let go of, which has been good as well. I think that you're right, there's almost been like a cosmic forcing function that we've had to stop, think and say, and change the way that we work. We've seen technology accelerate, but also we've also seen the need to look after ourselves and look after our well-being, and those are the positives, but we've got to double down on that. As you Americans say, we've got to double down on those things. You talked about the drama triangle. It's on my wall. It's such a great tool, so valuable. It keeps me in check, when I'm feeling like, oh, they should have done this. Why didn't they do that? And it's like, well, what am I doing? That's not going to help me. That's just bad energy. I'm going to have to get off that drama triangle and, like you say, get into that creative mode, as I call it, my adult brain, my best self. When I'm much more productive, and my conversations are more productive when I'm in my best self. Lots of great tips and tools and lots of reading that I'm going to go and do. Julie Caldwell's new to me. So yeah, I'm really glad that we've also recorded this session so that we can revisit it. We're going to pick out some of the best bits and share that more widely over Twitter. So do look out for that as well. Oh, there's just loads to go at. I'm going to definitely use that the Genius tool with my team. That's on our team away day, definitely for next time. So I just want to say, you know, express my gratitude for you coming, sharing all these great tips and tips that we can all use, and my gratitude to everybody who stayed on for the whole session, and huge gratitude to the people that work in the background, who are the kind of the swan's legs who make this thing run really smoothly, and those are you know, members of our masterclass collaborative who bring these sessions to everybody. And you know, just go well, go safe, enjoy your evening. It's dark here now, but if you can get out for a walk just to get some fresh air, and you guys enjoy that sunshine that I can see it's peeking over your garden fence, you lucky things. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Juliet. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thank you.